All right, so this is the Meteorite Aquarium, and very recently I completely wrecked it. Now, I've set this up about a year ago, and because of adding some of the wrong fish in here, I completely ruined it. So now I'm gonna go back and go through the process of restoring it and show you that process, and hopefully have good results by the end. So let's get into it. All right, so this is the Meteorite Aquarium in its prime. As you can see, there is an army of blue dream shrimp just keeping this place clean, free of crazy algae growth. There is some algae on the rock, but it's all under control. There's cool mosses, plants are doing good, and just around the clock, these shrimp are just patrolling, keeping this place clean. There's a colony of neon tetras. There is a plague of snails, but they do help keep this place clean as well. But yeah, just an overall healthy tank. Very pleasing to look at. Plants are doing great. And I just thought that it was missing something. Just a big piece, the main feature. I thought it was missing it. So I found this angelfish in one of my other tanks. And I thought that it would be a great place to keep this angelfish, just because it was all by itself. Maybe it needed a little bit more stimulation. So adding it in here maybe gave it a cooler place to hang out and swim and be around this little school of neon tetras, as well as maybe keep the shrimp population in check. And that was a mistake because as soon as I added him, he ate a few. And I thought that, maybe you can eat a couple and he'll be full for a while. But I was wrong, because by the very next day, he had eaten every single shrimp, all of them. And here is the next day. As you can see, there is not one shrimp in sight. Terrible. And a few months later, here is what the tank looked like without the massive population of shrimp, just keeping this place clean and keeping the algae growth down. This hair algae completely exploded. It completely took over the surface of the rock. It grows in between all the plants. It catches a lot of that sunlight. It got into the Monte Carlo plants at the very bottom of the tank. Just caused problems all around, and it doesn't look great. It's like an explosion of green popping out of the tank. Luckily, the fish did not seem to be affected by it, but it just wasn't good. So I decided to remove the angelfish, and by removing it, I would be able to bring back a small colony of shrimp, and this would hopefully do a lot of the work needed to bring this tank back. So here's all these shrimp that I had in another one of my tanks that I was able to collect and bring into the Meteorite Aquarium. And they obviously will not be able to eat all of this algae. They might pick at it a little bit. I don't know if they even like it, but they will do a lot of the work to keep this place clean, and it'll help me around the clock to bring this back, and restore this tank to how I originally had. All right, so one of the first things I did was to trim down all of the algae as close to the rock as possible. This will help out the shrimp eat it and stay on top of it. And I also cranked up the CO2 as high as I could while keeping it at a safe level to help the plants grow a little bit faster than the algae can. All right, so it's been a few more days and the algae seems to be slowing down. The plants have been growing a lot though, and that's very good. What I'll do now is add this floating plant in the middle of the tank so that it can block out the light that is keeping this algae going. Once this plant spreads out, it will take away the algae, and I can just once again remove it, and get the tank back to how it used to look. All right, and here is the filter of the fish tank. I've just unplugged it, and I'm gonna disconnect the hoses and give it a good clean. All right, and to anyone who hasn't used a canister filter before, this was my first time using it, and it's actually really nice. It's got quite a bit of space on the inside, and it has different stages for water filtration, starting out with a more rough stage, kind of for the bigger particles and all the waste. And then it goes through each stage, which ends up polishing the water. And it kind of has beneficial bacteria in here as well. But in this case, this filter was actually very clean, and I was very surprised at this. The one thing I do in this tank is use a pre-filter sponge to keep out the shrimp and small fish from getting stuck in this filter. And I think that's what caused this filter to be so clean on the inside. So I just went ahead and connected it, filled it back up, connected it, and get the water flow going again. And here is the tank just a few weeks later. And you might notice that there's something missing. Here's a previous clip, and what you'll see is that I removed a lot of what used to be the carpeting plants, and it was just a bunch of Monte Carlo plants that had been completely run over by algae. So I decided it was just best to remove the whole patch and let it start over. I'm trying my best to keep the CO2 levels in the green every single day, and the hope here is that if I keep the plants as healthy as possible, they will outcompete the algae, and eventually the algae will just die off and not really be an issue anymore. But I think the plants are getting quite big now, and it might be time for a trim pretty soon. All right, 2 weeks later, we have a ton of growth. You can see the surface of the tank here be completely covered, and the light is just peeking through the gaps in these plants. I think the floating plants were a good idea just because they reduce the growth of the algae, and all the stem plants have been able to grow around it and cover the rest of the surface. Now, this has become a very active tank to look at. The fish are very active and swimming all the time, and the shrimp have populated to a rate that it is now very common to see this nice blue all around the rock and constantly cleaning the tank. And the last step I'll take here is to give the plants a good trim. Now, the plants got this size due to the CO2 that I've been injecting into the tank, and some of the plants have turned orange, a little bit yellow, maybe a little bit red near the light, which is kind of what I was hoping for. And what I'll do is take those trimmings and replant them to kind of have more color variation as well as bushier looking plants. Aside from the plants, I have done quite a bit of work trying to minimize the algae growth. And as you can tell, there's still some algae, but overall I'm happy with the plants, the fish, and the look of this tank. I think it looks a lot like it used to. With the exception of the plant patch at the bottom, like the carpeting plants here, they still have some room to grow. And this is what the surface of the tank is looking like with all the floating plants. I do see that some of the shrimp come up here to eat and catch some of the biofilm, but I also saw that there's baby fish in the tank now, and this is the first time I've seen baby fish in here. I think they're using these floating plants just to hide and eat some food before they grow a little bit more and go into the more open spaces. I've had this tank for over 2 years now, and I'm glad to see it back in good shape. This is a stone that I dug out of the ground, and I just thought it looked crazy because of all the little caves and how big it is, and definitely a small tank for it, but I thought it would look amazing. So I'll keep working on it. But that's it for this update. Thanks for watching.